Champions are made in November, and it's mid-November. This is Around the League from UGAsports.com. I'm Dayne Young, joined by Jim Donnan and Brent Rollins. We are partners with Connor Grading and Landscaping and ASW Distillery. So if you like to drink in your backyard, this is the show for you. Thanks for watching Around the League from UGAsports.com. Let's just get into the biggest game of the week, guys. And Brent, I'll start with you because we have Alabama at Ole Miss, and I saw you quote tweet SEC Shorts today with their joke about Alabama's playbook, and it's just Bryce Young do something, and it seems like that's kind of what Alabama is right now.
It really is. It's just staggering to watch them and watch what they've become over the past 2 years. It's literally, I mean, it was perfectly said by the SEC Shorts people to me. Like, it's hopefully Bryce can make something happen because he's scrambling around and, just looking at couple of different things. One, the last 2 seasons, Bama has now played 8 games decided by less than 7 points. Not 7, less than 7. The previous 6 years, it was 9. So the domination factor is completely and utterly gone. But 2, in those 8 games, Bryce played in 7 of them. The average number of dropbacks he's had in those 7 games that he played, 51. Like, they just keep asking him to – I mean, he's really daggone good, but they keep asking him to be Superman, and you can't live on the edge like that. And maybe Ole Miss can finally take advantage of it. It's going to be interesting to see how Lane adapts in this game versus what he was a season ago when it was let's go for it on 4th down every time.
Yeah, I mean, they're up-back team, and they're really successful against the lesser teams, but against the better teams that pressure him, then it's a scramble for your life. And I know Coach Saban has seen that team evolve like that, but I don't think they really were counting on not having any running game. But when they force a running game, it looks pretty good. They just don't stay after it very much. But, certainly the fact that you've lost 2 games one by – a field goal at the buzzer and then a 2-point play at the buzzer doesn't mean you're a terrible team, but it means you're out of the play. That's the way it is for Nick and the boys. But, this is going to be a pivotal game for if Lane's going to get over the hump at Ole Miss. You got to win a big game like this. You're playing at home. You got the crowd. You got the good running attack, which, kind of fits into Alabama's forte. They're pretty good against the run, but they have time against a mobile quarterback that's running these type of plays that Dart runs. So I think it's going to all boil down to can Ole Miss get enough stops and can Dart take care of the ball? Because when Alabama's good, they create lost yardage plays and they create some turnovers to make it easier on the offense. So I wouldn't say the king is dead, but he's out there in the moat, and some alligators are coming after him right now. As far as the old, the way we used to talk about the dragons and everything. But it's certainly a changing of the guard the way George is taking over this league.
Alabama's a 12-point favorite on the road at Ole Miss. That is the CBS 3:30 Eastern game. Coach, I would think the typical game plan when you have the running backs that Ole Miss does with Judkins and Zach Evans is to try to put this game in the mud and keep Alabama's offense off the field. But that's not necessarily what Lane Kiffin historically does. Do you see them trying to just put this game to bed and just limit possessions?
No, that's not their style. They run so fast. I mean, they're a lot like Tennessee, but they don't throw the ball down the field. But they really rely on you getting lined up late. And I'm sure they were encouraged by the way Alabama couldn't do it against Tennessee. So it's hard to milk the clock when you're running all those plays very quickly, particularly if you get 3 and outs. But they can't change their style to try to keep Alabama off the field. I just think they got to play, understanding it might be a high-scoring game. I really think that's their best chance is just, make some big plays in the running game and hope that that Alabama's corners don't play feast or famine. I mean, you look at Alabama against Tennessee, just really struggled. But against Mississippi State, their corners were outstanding. They played every play they had to and just nullified. They had some drop balls too. But which kind of Alabama corners are you going to see in this game?
And Brent, I kind of wanted to ask you too. Like, if Ole Miss finds a way to win this, then the SEC West, not only is Alabama already kind of out of the picture for that in the playoff, but if Ole Miss finds a way, then Ole Miss LSU all of a sudden
Still alive. Ole Miss is 100% still alive because LSU's got to go play 2 games at Arkansas this week, and then I think A&M, which still you can lose at any point. What's interesting is the number you brought up. Alabama going on the road to face 11th ranked Ole Miss, 1-loss Ole Miss, is a 12-point favorite. LSU going on the road to a 4-loss Arkansas team is a 3-point favorite. That's what Vegas sort of tells you in terms of what they saw with the outcome of the LSU-Alabama game, just the coin flip that it was. So Ole Miss, it's like Coach said, it's now for Lane. Like this is the time. Alabama's down. They've been beat twice now. You got to get them here. This is the time to get them.
Let's go to the next game here, and I'm going to stick with you, Brent, because Coach and I have talked a ton about it already. Georgia at Mississippi State, number 1 ranked Bulldogs against the unranked Bulldogs. Georgia, a 16-point favorite on the road. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time kick on ESPN. But if you're smart, you'll have the watch-along show from UGAsports.com on your side screen with Jim Donnan and Roddy Nabulsi. Not me. I'm going to be in Starkville checking this game out in the 40-degree weather on the sideline.
Awesome. We're on to the Bulldogs. What was that you asked me? We're on to the Bulldogs. I could see that's kind of all week, something that Kirby Smart is saying, hey, we just beat Tennessee. Yay. We're on to Mississippi State. And sort of the Belichickian phrase. But this game now becomes ginormous because, especially with a younger team, what have we seen with the younger Georgia team this year? You've gone on the road and you struggled. You've played some lesser opponents at home and struggled. Like now, I guess you kind of ramp up to this 3 or 4 game stretch where you win this week and I think you clinch the East. But can you do that? Because Mississippi State has struggled against some of the better teams, but they also, I think one of the things I talked with Dayne about coaches with Mike Leach and his own personality. That's why I think you get ebbs and flows with their team. But the number 1 team coming in this week, home game, night game, they're going to be completely and utterly jacked up. But the interesting thing is with Levis, or not Levis, but Will Rogers, his game against Georgia 2 years ago, I think it was his second start, almost 80% completion. He's only bested that in 3 games the rest of the last 2 seasons. So he played extremely well against Georgia his first time around. Has Georgia learned from that 2 years? Have they taken some of the things from Samford? Because Samford's very much defensively as well as offensively like Mississippi State. Should they win? Should they dominate? Yes, but you never know in college football in 2022.
Yeah, it's such a high standard now for Georgia. Everybody expects you to go out and just steamroll people like they have these 2 teams in the top 6 in the playoffs. You know, you look at Oregon and Tennessee. I mean, but the thing that happened a couple years ago, Georgia decided to play 3-man rush and keep the ball in front of them. And Rogers just hit every play they had to, and they made some 4th down conversions. And they really pressured us. You know, JT Daniels had a big game throwing the ball, but we had trouble with that 3-3-5 look, and they really got a lot of underneath stops where they got us from the backside or linebackers run through. I think we're a lot better off in offensive line equipped to stop this pressure package that Mississippi State presents. And defensively, we've got the kind of people on the back end that will challenge these guys. But it's pretty much like anybody that's got any sense that can read. When they throw for over 300 yards, they win. They're six wins. When they're under 300, they get beat. They got stomped by Kentucky because they couldn't run or pass. They had the game won against LSU, and they went into the fetal position. And then against Alabama, when they had a chance to make plays, they kept dropping passes. So it's a little bit of you're either going to beat yourself against Georgia, Mississippi State, or you're going to make enough plays to stay in the game. I think Georgia understands what's at stake. We've just got to take care of the football down there. And I really look for Stetson Bennett to air it out, though. That's the best way to work against this secondary is, just play action pass, hold those backers, throw underneath them. Should be an interesting game, but I still feel like Georgia's got a good plan for them.
And if you get a lead, you can get your fish sandwich and your lemonade and go find a shade tree and go on from there. Right?
I guess so.
Although there won't be chairs on the sideline. That we do know.
There will not be chairs.
Have earned those back. You have to
They
eat
did not-
standing up.
Yeah.
I look back at Mike Leach, though, and I remember the game that they played Texas when Texas was number 1, and he was at Texas Tech, and they had that long pass down the boundary, and the guy made a big catch, and they beat Texas for a big upset. When they were number 1, he's probably telling his players that, hey, I've been in those kind of games before, and, we're going to, go shoot the guns against these guys. What's incredible is how many times they go for it on 4th down, particularly on their end of the field. I mean, Cadillac Williams the other night on his own 25. I couldn't believe that in the first half, but that was the first.
Watch your microphone, Coach.
First entree into the game, being the head coach. But I was really surprised the way Alabama's lost to LSU without any running game, and then you see Auburn come in there and run the ball on Mississippi State like they did. It looked like old Cadillac Williams running that tall sweep the other night.
You mentioned Leach, and I'm to the point that Leach and Chris Hatcher, I kind of feel like it's the movie thing with the 6 or 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever that is. I think everything comes back to Valdosta State with football because, Coach, I saw this. So the Indianapolis Colts, they hired Jeff Saturday to be their interim coach. Well, their play caller this weekend is a 30-year-old Parks Frazier. Well, Parks Frazier played for Chris Hatcher at Murray State. He also worked with Buster Faulkner at Arkansas State. But the fact that I went looking through this, and it stuns me that with all the people that are connected back to Chris Hatcher in some way, as we know Kirby and Muschamp are, he is still not even 50 years old.
Right. Well, Brent, you got a chance, man. You've been calling those plays there with you and Pollock. I mean, maybe somebody's going to call on him to be the head coach, and you can come in there and run the offense.
I'm still holding out hope, Coach. Still holding out hope.
All these 30-year-olds getting the play calling duties in the NFL. It's a crazy world.
Yep.
All right, let's take a break here. And if you want to enjoy your shade tree in the spring, you can do so with the help of our friends at Connor Grading and Landscaping. If you like fish sandwiches, it's fine. You can have that back there as well. If people don't know, that's a quote that Mike Leach had last week. He said, get your fat girlfriend and your fish sandwich and your lemonade and go sit under a shade tree. Because, of course, it's Mike Leach. But the best shade trees that you can have and get set for the spring can be put there by Connor Grading and Landscaping. They've been supporters of UGAsports.com, specifically around the league since we started doing the show. Mike Connor, big Georgia fan, big SEC fan, just like the vibe we have on the show. You'll like the vibe they have in your backyard, whether it's the landscaping or if you want to get some patio pavers put in. Just so many options. The fire pit, I think, is what you'd like to have in your yard right now. So if you're thinking it's a good time to look at your yard, make sure it's either set for the spring or you're going to have a fun winter out there, because we know it's going to be a little chillier coming up and you want to have an outdoor space that you can enjoy and still stay warm. I think they can get you set up for that. So go check them out at connorgrading.com, and we do thank them for their support of UGAsports.com. All right, let's move on to our next game here. It is LSU at Arkansas. Brent, you mentioned this earlier. It's a 11 a.m. Central kick, so early game. LSU, the 3-point favorite on the road. What they did against Alabama, Brian Kelly, to me, has to be right there in Coach of the Year running, because he is maximizing this roster. And now you're seeing some of these younger guys that they recruited coming in. They're a special little team right now.
Yeah, and for all the accent things and the video where he's doing this number and all that sort of stuff, the dude can flat out coach. I mean, you look at what Daniels has done and how he's grown and how he's using them and evolved his team based upon that guy's strengths. He's now, in terms of quarterbacks, leading the Power 5 in terms of rushing, missed tackles forced, 10+ yard runs, yards after contact per attempt. And you watch the game against Bama, and his legs won the game. It was complete nut. The last drive to go score to take the lead before Bama came back and tie it. The play in overtime, his legs are the difference in that team right now, and they're just playing with lots and lots of confidence. But they're just a 3-point favorite on the road at Arkansas, who laid an egg against Auburn's future coach. It's just amazing.
Presumptive future coach. Let's not say that as a fact.
Not true. I'm not reporting anything.
Yeah, we'll have to
Don't
see
do that.
about that on who's going to be the coach. But I do feel like that LSU has really used the home field to their advantage. I mean, certainly the crowd was unbelievable the other night, and this crowd at Arkansas is going to kind of be either really good or maybe not good at all, because all of a sudden they got the air taken out of their sails with that loss. Terrible schedule for their playing BYU, Cincinnati, and Liberty and instead of a couple cupcakes. I mean, a ridiculous schedule. But they got a really tough fight now to get bowl eligible. I mean, all of a sudden that Missouri game with that new coach's contract, they're going to be cock of the walk coming in there, and then they got LSU. But I think Jefferson's health is really paramount here. He's just been bummed up all year, and then kind of a little bit lax on trying to run with the ball because he could get hurt. But this LSU defense, all of a sudden, with Perkins on the edge, I mean, they really are causing problems and playing with a lot of confidence, because all of a sudden, and Brent and I talked about it last week, when your offense is struggling and you're going out there and beating your head against the wall and you're looking over there and they're not doing anything, it's kind of hard to get fired up. But all of a sudden, you got a quarterback that's on fire, and if you do your job like you've been doing, now the offense is taking care of business. And they're just playing at an elite level on defense as far as open field tackling, as far as breaking on the ball, not giving up big plays. I give Brian Kelly, his staff, the players, I mean, they look like dog manure the first game as far as organization, poor kicking game, everything you could talk about. And then LSU looked like against Tennessee, looked like they hadn't even practiced. But all of a sudden, this team looks like a very confident and could be the first team in the history of football to get into the playoffs with 2 losses, because it's out there for them. If they could win out and all of a sudden beat us in the championship game, then you're looking at, could the SEC have 3 teams in there? Because I think Tennessee's going to get in there. If you can't pick Michigan with 1 loss with the schedule they played, and then Ohio State, if they get 1 loss, we'll just have to see. But nobody has the wins that Tennessee has. I mean, any way you look at it, the outside of the Georgia, of course, who has the 2 big wins. But I think Tennessee's looming there as maybe a real good chance of making the playoffs. But that doesn't mean anything about LSU, except I'm giving them love that it's on their plate. It's on their plate. Take care of business. Don't eat too much gumbo this week. I tell you, Sam Pittman will have his team riled up. He's on their ass all week. How can we play this poorly and be ready to go against a team like Liberty and get behind 21-0 at our place? I mean, that can't happen. Anything that you built up, they've lost now. I mean, fan support is still there, but all of a sudden, this is not the great team that everybody thought Arkansas was going to be. And I will remind you, which I've made a lot of bad picks, but I told you when the season started, Spencer Rattler will fold like an accordion, and then Arkansas is going to have a tough year, and they might not even make a bowl.
And with LSU, if there's a team that has a history of being a national champion with 2 losses, it's them. And sorry about West Virginia that year, Brent.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable year where they lost in the SEC championship game and still got in the. I mean,
2007, right?
Tennessee. The last time Tennessee was really, staying in football up until now. But
Rod Pete himself against Pitt.
I like around the league to be able to talk about these other teams, because it really has played out. The biggest phantom that we've seen is how good Ole Miss has been, losing all those players, getting the people in the transfer portal, and then Brian Kelly, who everybody say, well, it's going to take a long time. I know I talked to some there at spring practice, some pro scouts, and I said, Coach, they just don't have the players right now. But all of a sudden, Daniels comes in there. They're playing lights out on offense. They're getting the ball to Butte. That back is looking really good. I mean, is he a walk-on or?
Yeah, they have a walk-on in there. There's 2. Emery's doing his thing, but then they have the walk-on that's that smaller guy.
So I saw where he and Stetson Bennett are up for the Burleson Award that they give to the best walk-on player in the country. I don't know how he could be any better than Stetson, but he doesn't care. He's got all these shirts he's selling, so it won't make any difference.
Brent, did you have anything else on
No.
LSU Arkansas?
No, I think it's going to be an intriguing game. Like, and by the way, in LSU, 2 freshman tackles. Like they're playing with, and Arkansas is going to bring it. So could be fun.
I meant to mention, my friend Quinn brought this to my attention. This is the only week of the SEC this year where every SEC matchup is within the conference. So it's 7 SEC games all playing each other. It hasn't happened this year. It won't happen again. So that's a marquee part.
Get to enjoy it.
Here. Let's go to Texas A&M and Auburn. So we have Auburn, who sets records for biggest buyouts in the history of college football coaching, and Texas A&M as the team that could topple that should they want to, although they can't and won't, or they probably could. I don't know. It's weird. What I do know is that Auburn is a 2-point favorite at home, coach, against A&M. My, how A&M has fallen.
Well, when it rains, it pours. Last week, I felt badly for A&M with all the kids on top of the fact that their team's dwindling down. Then they get all these guys get the flu, and they, you miss some guys on special teams, you miss your depth, and it was obvious that they were a little bit shorthanded. But at the same time, I give the Gators a lot of credit. I mean, they really have found themselves with using ETN more, and of course, you got such a great player in Richardson who can, all of a sudden take off and go the length of the field and look like he's on cruise control the way he just runs away from people. But Texas A&M has just got to be the El Foldo of the year, a team picked in a top 10. I don't know if they should have been, but has got terrible play at quarterback. Their defense now can't stop anybody. I mean, their rushing defense has gone from being really good to being really bad. And I could look at this game and see that Cadillac Williams might dress out in a Halloween costume and try to say, hey, Tank's getting all his shorts. Maybe I can do it too. They're running good old-fashioned tall sweep. I know Will Friend, who's a good O-line coach, is over there now calling the plays for them. And they're just hammering, tonguing people, and they might be able to do that against A&M, but A&M's still got a better squad. I mean, Auburn's defense is not very good. I just can't say anything about this game except I'm exasperated about who to pick. It's a coin flip. I mean, maybe pick the home team. Auburn next week could lose to Western Kentucky. I think Western Kentucky come in there and throw the rock around on them. And then they got to play Bama in the last game. So this is really one of their biggest chances to maybe get bowl eligible with the next 2 wins. And then, the new coach can come in there and watch them practice while they're getting ready for the bowl.
I do think it will be Hugh Freeze, by the way. That's just a guess. But anyway, Cadillac. Like, I love the video. Like, they put out the video before the game and him talking about what it meant to be the coach and all those sort of things. And he did it. They fought, they got down 21-0, I think it was, and then fought back into the game. And then they did the squib kick. I mean, I know the guy had returned one for a touchdown already in the game, but it gave them field position. They got a penalty on the kick itself, and just, as opposed to walking out of there with a win, it was a fight. But yes, this is one of those where it's who's going to be last, who's going to be the lowest on the totem pole in the West. The loser leaves town in a way from a relegation standpoint.
Secretly, what I hope is that Auburn wins the next 3 games, gets a bowl game, and they're forced to hire Cadillac, because I really like Cadillac and his energy. And that guy loves Auburn, and it's contagious, and that they've needed that. I mean,
him and that other coach sprinting down to call the timeout, and it looked like the other coach liked a hammy or something.
Pulling the hammy, yeah.
He did. And he had the towel on his around his neck, a la Hal Mummy, the whole game. I was something different too.
If you want to make sure that you get to celebrate and have the joy that Cadillac Williams has for Auburn, maybe you have some Fiddler bourbon from ASW Distillery at your tailgate, at your house, in your backyard that Connor Grading and Landscaping can hook up for you. Check out our friends at ASW Distillery. I like the Fiddler bourbon, but you can also go with a few other options. They have 3 or 4 versions of the Fiddler. You can get their Resurgence rye whiskey, the Bustletown vodka, or the Winterville real gin. Just go see all that they have. ASWdistillery.com is where you can learn more about them, or go to your local store where you buy your spirits and say, I want ASW, because they support Around the League from UGAsports.com. Let's run through these last few games. We've teased this, but this is a noon game on CBS. Tennessee's at home, 20.5-point favorite. And Eli Drinkwitz gets a contract extension and a raise, to which I asked this question, Coach. Who was lobbying to get Eli Drinkwitz where they had to change a contract to keep him? What is this?
I think it was his wife. When you look at the not only got a extension, he got a $2 million raise, and I saw where they extended the defensive coordinator, who's done a fabulous job with their defense, but their offense has been as close to pathetic as I've seen for a Missouri team all year. They had the one game really played pretty good against South Carolina, but I think Drink's a good coach, and he's done a lot of good things as assistant coach, but as a head coach, he hasn't made his mark. And I know a lot of people that haven't coached at Missouri. I mean, my phone usually doesn't blow up much. I mean, I don't get many texts from Missouri. I get a lot of them from Oklahoma, but I got more from Missouri yesterday than I've had in 5 years. That, like it was my fault, like I recommended them to get 2 more years. But, people I hadn't heard from forever. I didn't even know maybe I could get a shirt out about my phone, because I had people hitting me up. I didn't even know had my number. And I'm serious. I mean,
you know what Stetson Bennett feels like now.
This has got to be the most incredulous contract extension that I can remember in a long time. I mean, maybe they've had good practices or something. I don't know. What are they doing over there? He's just, I guess it's because they kick field goals pretty good, even though they lost the one game when they missed one. But I can't be more sarcastic about it. This is incredible. This lady here is supposed to be a really prolific thinker and great administrator. She's a laughing stock of America right now. I mean, to give him an extension based on what he's done, unbelievable.
Coach, I hate to tell you, but I think you were in the wrong generation. You should have been a coach later on.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I enjoyed my time, but I tell you this, Tennessee is gonna rock them Saturday. I think their defense certainly is good, but they don't match up very good with Tennessee on the outside. I mean, most of their stuff is stopping the run like they did against Kentucky, against us, but they're going to have a hard time matching up with these Tennessee receivers. And I guarantee you, Heupel's going to be going for style points the next couple of weeks against Vanderbilt. And
he needs to,
and they're going to try to rock it up there. So I think this will be an ugly win ugly loss for the new contract and a big win for Heupel. How about you?
It's funny that you said something about the offense, because my notes have been inept was the word that I wrote offensively. But I will say this about Missouri and their defense in this game, independent of the ridiculousness that coaches already touched on in the perfect way. They aren't going to sit back and just relax and soft cover and just let kind of Tennessee do what they want. They're going to attack. They're going to blitz. They're going to come after Hendon Hooker. They're going to press up and play some heavy man. So I will be curious to see how Tennessee, because I heard Tennessee's offensive coordinator talking about, hey, we just played bad. Well, I mean,
he coached bad too. He didn't do one thing different. When you're getting blitzed like that, move the quarterback around. Don't have him back there. I mean, they can say all they want to. Excuse me for interrupting, but hey, the players did all they could, but they made no adjustments. I mean, Brent and I talked about it. They kept trying to do the same stuff, thinking, hey, they can't keep covering us. And they never made any kind of protection issues easier for the quarterback. That was a complete out-coaching his ass game by Kirby Smart and his team every way you can say. And I'm not being a homer guy there, but getting back to Missouri, I want to make this point too. a lot of times, and I don't know that this guy's got an ego, the new defensive coach there that's done a great job, and he got this new contract. But if his ego gets in the way and he thinks he can run the stuff that Georgia ran against them, they could get mashed because they don't have the guys on the back end to even come close to covering these guys. They can blitz them, and if they get to him, that's one thing. But if they don't, those safeties will get destroyed.
Yep.
I heard your
Well
dog,
said.
Brent, so I paused it to get the comment from Gracie back there. Let's go to South Carolina and Florida. Florida's an 8-point favorite at home, Brent. This is one of those games, though, if Shane Beamer finds a way, all of a sudden you look at a path and maybe 8-4 on the table for South Carolina, which would be crazy because I don't think they're very good.
And I think 8-4, by the way, is also on the table for Florida. Like, I like what I'm seeing week to week, improvement wise, from Anthony Richardson and just his ability. I hadn't watched him as closely. I watched him a little bit leading up to Georgia, but now watching that game and then watching this game this week, from an ability standpoint and how he throws the ball, and obviously the freakish nature of his size and speed as a runner, but he's going to get better and better. And I could see them. What's going to be interesting, though, I could see Florida winning out here, even beating Florida State at the end, 8-4, and they feel great about their coach and great about the program, but they're not. And if Anthony Richardson comes back, great, yay. But from a nuts and bolts player standpoint, they're still going to lose a lot. A lot of their best players this year were transfers from Louisiana. Like, it's not. I don't think they're going to be what maybe the record and the vibe will actually equate to. But yeah, South Carolina.
One thing good about Billy is he's put a Band-Aid approach on this team. He's brought in enough transfers to make them competitive, and he's taken advantage of Richardson's ability. And their defense made some stops against a poor A&M offense the other day. He still couldn't tackle the tailback, but he had a good game. But I think the thing about Richardson as a Georgia guy, I hope he comes out. I mean, I think he should. I mean, we don't need him to play next year because he continues to develop. Billy's doing a good job. South Carolina is either going to play really good or they're going to have a hard time because that's the way they go. When things are going good, they're really good. But when they have some adversity, I mean, they don't have enough players, do you think, Brent, to make up for that? They just have a hard – but, they got to win over Kentucky on the road, which I would have never thought, and they're just going to be playing in a really wild swamp. I think the swamp's really kind of all of a sudden say, hey, we got something going here now. Let's enjoy this game.
Agreed.
You mentioned Kentucky. They host Vanderbilt this week, noon on the SEC Network. Kentucky's an 18-point favorite, Coach. And I know it's Vandy, but I don't see 18 points being the margin in this. I would take those points for Vandy. I don't think Vandy's going to win it, but Kentucky's offensive line just makes it so easy for teams to stay with them.
Vanderbilt's the worst pass rushing team in the history of the SEC. I don't even think they have a sack this year. I mean, I know Brent will tell you they do, but they haven't gotten to the quarterback against anybody. If they could, they would on this team, though, because they're very poor. But, I think Kentucky just got to make sure they don't look ahead to Georgia and take care of business. They got too much ball for this Vandy team. And if the quarterback for Vandy's hurt, then it's a different type of approach if they run the zone read guy. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But 18 points is a lot for Kentucky. They have a hard time scoring that many points, much less beating somebody by that.
Called my shot last week, and then they went and turned the ball over early twice. And I was like, oh well, Vandy. I believed in you, but it just didn't happen. But Levis got hit a bunch against Missouri last week, sacked 6 times and hit a bunch of other times. Chris Rod, almost 30 carries. Like, they know who they are now with him back, and they're going to get through this week, I think, and then we'll set up an actual bigger game next week against Georgia. But oh well, that was your chance, Vandy. I don't think you're going to get any others.
Coach, you know what Brent told me on Sunday? Because we were having our perpetual Will Levis first-round pick conversation just because he's still like a top 10 projected pick. And Brent said, yeah, I'd take Stetson Bennett over him for the NFL.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that Stetson can do is his intelligence level is going to help him when he gets interviewed by all these people, because he might not be a guy that's going to make a team as a starter, but he'd be a guy you want on your team to be a backup and know the offense and get in there. And then if he gets a shot, he'll do just like he has throughout his whole career. He's a lot like this Mullins guy that Coach
Shanahan.
Coach Monken had at and like you said, Coach Shanahan played him for San Diego, but Monken had at Southern Miss. Very good passer and very smart. So I just think Levis got way too much publicity right now, and he's going to have to do really well to compound to be a top 10 guy. The guy that's the best quarterback in the country right now is the one at UNC. He's got another year because he redshirted last year, but man, that May guy is just unbelievable the way he's throwing the ball.
He's carrying them.
I wish we could see the Carolina Wake Forest game. That'll probably last for 3 days and 14 nights. Both teams between them will throw about 100 passes.
All right, final question for y'all before we wrap this week for Around the League. Will the SEC championship be clinched after this week? Meaning Georgia has to win and it clinches. It would take an LSU win and an Ole Miss loss for the West to be clinched.
You can say either way. It'll be hard for Ole Miss to beat Alabama. I really think that Alabama's got so many players. They'd have to lose to them, and then LSU, what kind of team's going to show up, and then Georgia should win for sure. But I would say it's not going to be clinched all the way.
So you're going to say the East is clinched, the West is not yet.
Yeah.
Brent?
I'm going to say yes. I think Georgia gets it, takes care of its business, and Bama takes care of Ole Miss, and LSU takes care of Arkansas.
All right, so we'll see if we go into next week knowing that in a couple of weeks we would have Georgia LSU SEC championship. We'll find out together. A couple big games in the SEC next week as we look ahead to that. Georgia and Kentucky, as we have mentioned. We'll see if Ole Miss is in this. They do go to Arkansas next week, so the West goes through Arkansas the next 2 weeks potentially. We'll all find out together. Thanks to Connor Grading and Landscaping. Thanks to ASW Distillery for supporting UGAsports.com and Around the League. Thank you for listening and watching. If you do that, thanks to Jim Donnan and Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young. We'll see you